morning. Good. So for those of you who have been watching some of my Facebook lives, you will have heard me say that you don't just inherit your physical DNA, right? I mean, we all know about the physical DNA, but you also inherit things like patterns of thoughts, feelings, actions, and I call that your emotional DNA. Now, the other piece that's super interesting is that most people don't realize that you also inherit the patterns for relationships. So your thoughts around relationships, your feelings around relationships, um, your actions that you take to make your relationships work or not work. And we think that these are all our thoughts and belong to only us, but it turns out that what your mama's been telling you or what your dad's been telling you about relationships is going to echo through and filter into the way that you have relationships. And who told them about theirs? That came from their parents and their parents and their parents. So yeah, you're sitting very often with multi-generational relationship patterns. Why is that so important? First of all, relationships are one of those big pieces that truly run the world, right? You have good relationships, you have a good network, you know how you're interacting with relationships. This can make you pretty darn successful. But when we struggle, we want to look at where we struggle with our original relationships and how that's affecting us now. And of course, fear doesn't help with those relationships. There is a ton of fear in the world right now. And what we're seeing is, instead of us coming together and collaborating and really finding solutions, a lot of the time what we're doing is we are reacting to relationships. Somebody says something, we're upset about what they say, and now we've got a contentious relationship. And we find that who we are at home with our relationships tends to also color how we are in our professional careers and how we are out in the world. Now, there are two ways for that to happen for us. For many of us, we go into fear, and we're going to talk a lot about fear in relationships today. When we go into fear, we go into the reactive brain. And now we're not looking for a new solution, we're reacting in the ways that we understand to react. And those come from generations back. The other way that we can react to relationships is to look at what comes from generations back and then decide to do it differently. And so when you're working with me or when we have a good event going, what we do in the events is we look at what are the thoughts, what are the feelings, what are the actions you are taking, how are those coloring your relationships, and how can you turn those around. Remember, I told you before, transformation begins for you, can change you as a person entirely when you decide to do something different, do something more, do something that's not in reaction to the system and not in collusion to the system, but something that allows you to write your own chapter. So I always say to people, if you've been in bad relationships, if you come from a family where relationships struggle, be really pleased, because you're going to get to a point where you're so tired of it that you want to do something entirely different. So yeah, in reaction to, you are also going to do something different. The thoughts tend to be, there's got to be more to life than this. I don't like the way my life is. I'm stuck. What do I do differently? And that's what we look at when we look at relationship DNA. So how does it show up? How does fear show up in your relationships? Well, when you start being in fear, when you start not feeling good about relationships, suddenly you start to have a look at rejecting relationships, rejecting parents. You can't be yourself in relationships. You fear rejection. You think you're going to be judged. You make yourself wrong. You're no good at relationships. Sounds like some of the stuff that you do to yourself, right? The thing is, often again, it didn't begin with you. It didn't start with your mother. It didn't start with you. It begins with your mother, your father, and it moves out. and echoes all the way back down to you. However, when you decide that relationships are really important to you because you want the promotion, you want to be in love with somebody you really, really enjoy, you've got to start doing something different. That means we've got to move you out of the fear. So let's first take a look at what the fear does. As I said, we get into thinking we're wrong, we start rejecting ourselves, we move away before we can be rejected. How many of you, may I ask, have been in a relationship and you can just see that this is not going to go well, and you're the one who walks away because you fear you will be rejected? What you're doing is you've gone into reactive brain. So now you're going back to all of those old survival patterns that probably didn't work in the first place, but you're going to try them anyway because that's what we tend to do. You're going to start thinking your same thoughts. You're going to start feeling those same horrible fears or feelings of, you know what, this is coming down, my stomach's twisting, I don't feel good. You're going to start repeating patterns that you don't even know that you're repeating, and you're going to wonder why you keep getting the same old result, time after time after time. The interesting piece is both you and your family system are waiting for you to do something different, and that's where the magic is. That's where you start to change things profoundly. That's where you start keying into your emotional DNA or your relationship DNA. Now, you'll have heard people say, go within. They're not wrong. But what do they mean? How are you supposed to do that? What they're really suggesting to you is go and have a look at the way things usually shape out for you. So if you and I were working together, I would be saying to you, get yourself a piece of paper, and I want you to write down everything that you tell yourself about relationships. Your professional relationships, your personal relationships, your relationships with your siblings, your parents, perhaps even your children. I want you to write down what you tell yourself about those. What are the things that you say? And then I would say to you, now that you've written that down, have a look at what you feel about those relationships. Read out each one of those sentences you've just written, and I want you to really feel what it is that you feel about that. And then I would ask you to have a look at what happens in your gut. Does your gut twist up? Do you feel good? What does it feel like for you? Because these are all patterns that you are repeating. And the minute you start to create those patterns, guess what? You're also creating a mindset, because now you're going to start not just thinking and feeling, you're going to start taking actions that put you into that same place. Again, how many of you have said, you know what, I'm leaving, or I can't do this anymore, or I'm just not good at relationships? It's not true. It's your truth, and it's what you've made things mean, but it's not the truth. And you can change that any time you want to. We are what I would call master self-magicians. We are really good at telling ourselves things, and then we believe it, and then we make it the truth, and we're off to the races. And now our relationships just are not good. But you're also the antidote. When you start telling yourself a different truth, when you start thinking a different thought, when you start feeling a different feeling and taking different actions, even little ones, and you keep doing that over and over again, your relationships start to change. We can be incredibly powerful on our own behalf. We just don't always realize it. And that can sound like a lot of hard work. So what we do at the events is we go through some of that hard work. We give you a chance to really experience what that feels like, what those thoughts do. And we do it in a highly interactive way. Because what we've discovered is that if you engage multiple senses, in other words, if I can get you to see it, hear it, even touch it and interact with it, Now you're going to start getting the 3D version of what it is that you typically do. And when you can walk into that and really play in the 3D field with what's happening with your relationships, oh my goodness, you're going to have a total embodied experience of that relationship. And you're also going to get the opportunity to have a total embodied experience of what you could create. And I will tell you that once you've done that once, you are not going to want to go back to the watered down version of what you've been feeding yourself. You are really going to want to engage with the richer possibilities and the full relationships that you can create. And we know that you are quite able to do that. We watch at all of our events, we watch people do that in the moment. Even our online events, in fact, our online events, which I have to tell you, I wasn't too sure about in the beginning. During those online events, we have people who are shifting and moving in their relationships as we're working. It turns out that even with virtual, or perhaps we're going to start having to say, especially with virtual events, people really start to focus in. They start to concentrate on what's happening in front of them, and you are feeling, you are sensing, you are hearing, and we're turning things around with you. And you're finding out that you are far more remarkable than you thought you could be. The other piece with relationships is that we often think, and you'll hear people say, well, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm whatever I am, and it's too late for me. No. Turns out that lovely brain of yours has a lot of neuroplasticity. Turns out that so does your gut and so does your heart. So when we teach you how to work with the heart, the head and the gut, and we work with you on those relationships, suddenly you move out of your reactive brain and into your creative brain. And we know that once you move into your creative brain and into your feeling space of your heart and the sensing space of your gut, which, by the way, you all do all the time, you just don't realize it. But when we have you start to do that, you begin to realize that you are able to look for different opportunities. You will also realize that your beautiful family system, whether you know it or don't, whether you're close to it or not, your beautiful family system is a wonderful incubator for you starting to move in a direction. Either you're going to add depth to it, or you're going to say, I need to do something different. And so what we do is we work with you on having a look at what you've got, what you can do differently, and how you're going to actually evolve not just you, but also your system. Now, this is strong transformation, and doing this work has really good transformational skill sets. We use these with coaches, we use them with organizational development people, with everyday people who are anything but everyday, but you really get to upgrade yourself. It also turns out that we are really remarkable lives if we know how to see them. And so we teach you to do that through a systemic lens and a strongly transformational lens that shows you not just how to break a cycle that you've been locked into and how to stop being stuck, but what's next. And the what's next is a super exciting place to play, because what's next is really up to you. And yes, when we're working with it, you'll begin to understand that your language is really important. You're going to learn to pay attention to what you say. You are really going to learn to pay attention to what you say, because we tackle on ourselves all day long. We're telling what lives in our systems all day long. Now, when I started speaking to you, I said to you, write down the thoughts that you have. I would also say to you, start looking at what your family is saying. Start looking at what your grandmother told you about relationships. Look at what it is that you've noticed in the mottos in the family. Well, we don't do relationships, or in our family we are always strong and kind, or we're the people that people gravitate towards. It's only whichever the way it is that you think it is, because you made it so. You told yourself that. You believed it. And the minute you did, that became your truth. So when you really get that piece, you are going to start realizing that a lot of your relationships that are stuck, where you're sad, where you're miserable, are because you've told yourself that's the way it is. Well, my mother doesn't talk to me, so that's the way it is. We don't have a good relationship. Have you looked at why your mother doesn't talk to you? What is in her set of patterns that keeps her distant from you? My dad is very distant. Okay, what event created that distance? Because something that I haven't touched on yet is that, like any of the emotional DNA, events are really important. What was the event that stopped you from feeling like you were good in relationships? You were having a relationship with an amazing person and everything came crashing down because you messed up. Well, okay, so what did you tell yourself that told you you messed up? Did you think to sit down and have a look at, what did I learn from that relationship? What can I take from that relationship? What do I want to change about that relationship? We keep thinking that when we have to learn lessons, it's because we're bad people. No, you're teaching yourself, you're teaching your body, and you're teaching your brain what it needs to know for you to be someone or something else. So it's not that you're bad in a relationship. You may have crashed in a relationship. What are you going to take from that? What are you going to learn? How can you apply it to something stronger? The one way, if you keep thinking you're bad, you're done. I don't do relationships. I'm really bad at relationships. My relationship DNA sucks. No, you had an event, you had a thought, you had a reaction, you had a feeling. You took an action. My question is, did it serve you? If not, and it's become a mindset, what do you want to tell yourself now about being really good at relationships that's going to take you a step ahead? This, when you decide something, you lock it into an identity. Yes, kitchen table, it then becomes your truth. The most exciting piece of all of this, we are seriously, infinitely capable beings when we tell ourselves that and we make that our truth. And relationships are no exception. We want to notice how we lock ourselves down and unlock ourselves again. I remember as a teenager being this really geeky, really nerdy, kind of sciencey person who had taught myself that, you know what, I'm not the popular kid. I cannot do relationships. I'm too shy. So now that I'm too shy, so that there's the thought, right? The feeling is, don't see me because my heart's going about 100 beats a minute, so I'm not going to do well. I'm not really good at this. I feel bad when I've got to emerge or somebody wants to speak to me. What were the actions I would take? Oh boy, if there was a party, I was out the door in the back garden doing anything different. Anything. And then I found dancing. Ballroom, Latin, and disco dancing. I was a champion back in the day. And what I realized was there were a lot of shy people. Shyer than me. Which was really good. So now I began to tell myself, there are a lot of other shy people. I could help those shy people because I know what shy feels like. And suddenly I became the shy person who could help shy people. Well, that was kind of the lid of Pandora's box, because after that, I didn't get shy again. I realized that all that people really wanted was to be communicated with, to be validated, to be respected, that all I had to do was be kind, and yeah, I might get blowback sometimes, but I outgrew the needing to be the good kid sitting in the corner that I told myself about. So when I look back, I came from a family of do the right thing, be the good kid. You shouldn't be seen. I bet some of you know these ones. As a kid, you shouldn't be seen, you shouldn't be heard. And I had to talk myself out of that and say, I have something to say. There are people I want to share with. And I had to remind myself that there was a different me over there. And when you start to create that, it may sound a little fluffy. It is not. You are literally creating the being you want to be. And if you watch athletes, if you watch Olympians, if you watch motivational speakers, if you watch teachers, there comes a point at which they make the choice that their desire or their want to contribute and to excel is stronger than their need to be the kid sitting outside being shy. And that's what happened for me. I really began to understand that there were things that I had to say to people. And when I started to talk to people and I was nice, so nice became a piece for me, that people would respond. And then I began to understand that there was a lot that I wanted to teach. And I wanted to be in that kind of relationship with people. So I also had to get past I'm sure there are a lot of you who know this. I had a really bad relationship with cameras. A lot of you will have heard me tell this story. I had an aunt, so this is the important piece, and I'm telling it because this is what we teach ourselves. I had an aunt who told me, some of us get the brains and some of us get the looks. Aren't you lucky you got the brains? Well, what I made that mean was, you ain't got the looks, girl. You are not pretty. Don't ever appear in front of a camera. Do not let that lens shine on you. So for the longest time, there were no pictures of me. I made what she said mean, not you're smart, but you're ugly. And this is what we do to ourselves. And we do it in relationships too. I'm not worthy. I've never been good at, You made it mean that. You told yourself that. And I promise you, when you start looking at relationships and you begin to understand relationship DNA, where it came from, how it lives in you, and what you can do with it, your life is going to change. People are going to wonder what on earth happened to you, who on earth this new person is, and how they can get a little bit of that too. Because as I said before, you're the magician who makes it happen. You're the one who creates the patterns. The patterns become your mindset. Your mindset becomes the truth. Only it's not the truth, it's your truth. And it's very likely your multi-generational truth. Now, here's the other little piece that's just at least a little bit magical. The minute you start saying, I'm not shy, I'm not unworthy, or let's switch that around. I'm happy to be here, I'm worthy of being here, I enjoy relationships, I like people, and you start teaching yourself that, not only are you going to change, but the rest of your system's going to go, well, hold on a minute. Something just shifted. Something changed. I need to listen. What is this person saying? Now your entire system is starting to shift. I want to talk to you about a young lady, and you'll all know the person I'm speaking of, who got shot in the face. The young Indian woman who got shot in the face. She could have made that mean, it's the end of my life. She could have made it mean, I'm not worthy because I'm not supposed to be seen. She could have made it mean, I'm going to be very quiet in relationships. I will be that subservient person like we're supposed to be. She didn't. She started to tell herself, I'm not willing to accept this. I'm going to be a voice. I'm going to demonstrate why I am good in relationships. In fact, I'm going to relate to the world. In fact, watch me, and the next thing we know, here is a person who has talked herself all the way out of cultural relationships, because our relationships also depend on our cultures, our countries, not just our family systems, into a Nobel Peace Prize. because she dared to do it differently. And I wonder often, when we start to tell ourselves a nicer truth, a stronger truth, a kinder truth, who and what are we capable of becoming? We've been taught for a long time to be in relationship with our small self and to be in relationship with fear. And about my invitation to all of you is to be in relationship with your big self, to start teaching yourself how capable you are in relationships, to start noticing how much you have to offer relationships. You are unique. It doesn't matter if it's your funniness, your sense of humor, your goofiness. You have something to offer. And when you start offering your authentic self and you start creating the self that you want to be, you're going to migrate from your smallness to someone that people are going to want to be around. You're going to change the way you relate in teams. You're going to change the way that you relate as a leader. You are going to be the person that people want to be in relationships with, because you're not apologizing for who you are. You're bringing who you are, and you are offering the best of yourself. So the next time you want to go into fear around your relationships, I'm going to ask you to sit down. I'm going to ask you to take out that pen and paper, and I'm going to ask you to realize what you've just told your brain, or who you've just told your brain you are. And then I'm going to invite you to start looking at yourself very differently. Because when you do that, not only will you gift you a different you in relationships, you will start to gift your culture, your community, your family, and the world a very different you. And we are looking in the world for strong relationship builders. We are in a time right now where we need people to create strong, kind, caring, inspirational relationships. And the only thing stopping you from doing that is quite literally you. Are you going to play to your smaller self and not have something profound to say? Or are you going to offer the world what it's been waiting for? Now, I've spoken to you a little bit today about relationships and fear in relationships, and of course, the not fear in relationships. I will be teaching a whole lot more about where that fear comes from, how it lives in you, what you can do with that fear, how you can stop it so that you don't pass it on to the next generation, but also how you can rotate and pivot it so that you, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in your life, can turn this into a remarkable life through incredible relationships that you're going to learn how to create. I will be offering that in September, and we've decided right now, given the situation, that we will be taking it live. Now, when I say live, I mean virtually live, not in person right now. For right now, we are in a space and a time where we're not able to connect personally, but when I say live virtually, you will see how profound this work is online too. The beautiful thing about doing this virtually and online is that I don't have to limit the numbers. And yet I'm going to get to be able to work with many of you, if not most of you, so that you can turn around where you are and create something incredible. So until we can meet what we would call true life, I suppose, or true live in person, we're going to be taking this work out virtually. And we've already done this with Emotional DNA. The response was amazing. I didn't know if it would work. It worked terrifically. But if you want to come and find out how to take your own relationships to the next level, what to do about turning stuck into something profound, then I'm going to invite you to join us virtually from September the 11th through the 13th, and you're going to be working really hard. We go from about 9 in the morning till about 5 in the afternoon. We break for lunchtime so that you can get out and breathe and think about all that's happening. And we're going to be doing exercises. You're going to be interacting with each other and interacting with me a whole lot. And you're going to start moving your life. Because guess what? We may be locked down at the moment, some of us. We may be social distancing because we're choosing to do something that's going to be good for all of us. It doesn't stop us from starting to change everything now. And this is one of the reasons we're taking it online and bringing it to so many people. We're taking it to as many as we can so that you start creating that change now. You start changing your relationships with others online, virtually, socially distancing as well. I noticed an interesting thing. Over here in Texas, for a long time, people didn't wear masks, or not too many of them wore masks. There was a sense of, why do I need to? This is my freedom, whatever it was. And then we had a leader who said, you know what, you really need to wear those masks. It's going to protect you and it's going to protect others. And this morning when I went out, I will say that there were probably 90% of people, if not higher, wearing masks. Now, did that stop our relating to each other? Because we're used to waving, saying hi. It was incredible to see how many people were speaking with their eyes, how many people were focusing, how many more waves there were. We were choosing to relate differently, but we were still relating. And it was incredible to watch. So we were telling ourselves a very different story. I don't have to have nose, mouth, smile to relate. My eyes can do that too. My hands can do that. We were finding that we were not limited and we were not restricted. We were relating differently. And for me, that was profound because, of course, I knew that I was going to speak to you all this morning about relationship DNA and about fear and how it can shape your relationship. This morning, I saw people choose to overcome fear and relate with their hands and with their eyes. And so I'm asking if they could do that, and you take your new thoughts, new feelings, and new actions, what can you do? I'm looking forward to seeing you all. I should mention, if you want to sign up for the workshop, you need to go to my website. That's Judy Wilkins-Smith.com. Go and take a look. Please feel free to reach out and share with me any questions you may have. Share those with me. I look forward to hearing from all of you again. It's been incredible to see the number of you who have watched me and who've asked me for the next piece. And of course, there will be a lot of next pieces. And I'm looking forward to meeting more and more of you. So shout out to all of you who've been there. Feel free to also follow me on LinkedIn. Go to my Facebook page, Judy Wilkins-Smith Facebook page. Like me there, and you'll get to hear more from me. We'll be interacting a whole lot. You are going to learn how to shape your emotional DNA, your relationship DNA, and how to become a remarkable being. And by the way, at the moment, with Disney creating these beautiful bubbles, you're also going to be able to see me live, in person. We're going to be able to relate one-on-one and in group at Disney World in November 6th through 9th, at the beautiful Swan and Dolphin. We'll be at the Dolphin. And if you want to find out more about that workshop, you can also log on to my page, my website page, and go and have a look there. I will tell you that Dolphin has already told me they are booking fast. So if you want to get into that, I will be teaching Fear DNA, and it shapes everything. So September, Relationship DNA. November, Fear DNA. I look so forward to seeing you all there, and I can't wait to hear from you. I love hearing from you after I've done these Facebook Lives. So feel free to reach out. It's been lovely to spend time with you today. Go and have a lovely rest of your Saturday, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Take care.